The silent departure. The chamber of the Galactic Assembly stretched vast and magnificent beneath the triple suns of Axiom Prime. Crystalline pillars rose like frozen waterfalls, refracting light into patterns that danced across walls of polished stone. 53 species occupied their designated spaces, each architecture designed to accommodate their unique physiologies. The floating pods of the Etherians drifted near the vaulted ceiling. The aquatic Kelthrans observed from their pressurized spheres. The towering Draxians stood at attention behind their console platforms. Today, the chamber hummed with an energy that Speaker Velroth recognized as satisfaction. His silver-skinned hand activated the resonance field, and his voice carried to every delegate present. Velroth had served the Assembly for 3 centuries, guiding countless decisions that shaped galactic civilization. Today's vote would be remembered as one of the most significant. The matter before us concerns Species Classification Review 7834, regarding humanity's continued full membership in the Galactic Assembly, Velroth announced. His 3 eyes surveyed the chamber with calm authority. The evidence has been presented over 14 cycles. We now proceed to final statements before the vote. Military Commander Draxon rose from the Draxian platform, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber floor. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world, resulting in dense muscle and bone structure that made them naturally formidable. Draxon had commanded galactic defense forces for 8 decades, earning respect through calculated precision. The military committee's position is clear, Draxon stated, his voice like grinding stone. Humanity demonstrates dangerous unpredictability in tactical situations. They deviate from established protocols. They improvise during critical operations. They take unnecessary risks that endanger coordinated military efforts. In the Battle of Helios Reach, human vessels broke formation to pursue what they called a hunch. This action resulted in casualties that proper discipline would have prevented. Chief Scientist Mariah of the Luminari stood next, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with emphasis. Her species had achieved spaceflight 7,000 years before humanity discovered fire. Their contributions to galactic science were foundational to modern civilization. The Scientific Directorate has documented numerous concerns, Mariah said, her melodic voice tinged with frustration. Human researchers consistently violate safety protocols. They conduct experiments that our probability models classify as extremely hazardous. They pursue theories that contradict established scientific consensus. When we implemented proper oversight on Joint Research Station Kepler, human scientists complained about being restricted. They do not understand that science requires methodical precision, not reckless experimentation. More delegates voiced similar complaints. The Merchant Consortium reported that human traders ignored established trade routes, finding shortcuts through regions deemed too dangerous for commercial traffic. The Medical Collective noted that human doctors used treatment combinations that violated standard care guidelines. The Engineering Guild documented that human technicians modified equipment without authorization, making changes that deviated from manufacturer specifications. Ambassador Sarah Chin sat in the human delegation section, listening to each criticism with an expression of perfect neutrality. She was 52 years old, with gray threading through her black hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of years spent navigating diplomatic complexities. For 12 years, she had represented humanity's interests in the Assembly, advocating for her species among civilizations that measured their histories in millennia rather than centuries. Beside her sat the other human delegates. Commander James Torres, who had served with distinction in joint military operations. Dr. Kenji Sato, whose medical innovations had saved thousands of lives across multiple species. Engineer Maria Santos, who had improved efficiency on 17 different space stations. They all maintained the same composed silence, showing no reaction to the mounting accusations. Speaker Velroth called for the final vote. All delegates in favor of Resolution 7834, which reclassifies humanity from full membership to observer status, indicate your position. The voting process was swift. Holographic displays showed each species' decision in real time. The Etherians voted in favor. The Draxians voted in favor. The Luminari voted in favor. The pattern continued with predictable consistency. Some species abstained, uncomfortable with the decision but unwilling to oppose the majority. A few voted against, recognizing value in human contributions that others dismissed as chaos. When the final tally appeared, the result was overwhelming. 41 species in favor, 8 abstentions, 4 opposed. Resolution 7834 passed with clear majority support. Velrotha's voice carried the weight of official proclamation. By authority of the Galactic Assembly, humanity is hereby reclassified from full member status to observer status, effective immediately. Human representatives may attend assembly sessions but hold no voting rights. Human participation in joint operations, research projects, and trade agreements will be subject to oversight and approval from full member species. The chamber filled with the polite applause of species relieved to have resolved a troubling situation. Many delegates felt they had corrected a mistake, bringing proper order to a civilization that had granted membership too quickly to a species too young and too volatile to handle the responsibility wisely. Velroth turned his attention to the human section. Ambassador Chen, the Assembly recognizes your delegation. Do you wish to make a statement in response to this decision? Sarah Chen stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber focused on her. Many delegates expected protests, emotional outbursts, perhaps threats or warnings about the consequences of this action. Humans were known for their passionate reactions, after all. Instead, Sarah simply nodded once. A single, brief acknowledgement of the speaker's words. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. The other human delegates rose and followed her. 27 humans departed the chamber in complete silence. Their footsteps made no sound on the polished floor. They offered no parting words, no expressions of disappointment or anger. The delegates watched the humans leave with a mixture of relief and confusion. Commander Draxon leaned toward his assistant. That was unexpected. I anticipated at least some argument. Perhaps they are processing the shock, his assistant suggested. Emotional species often need time to react to significant setbacks. The Assembly quickly moved to the next item on their agenda, a trade dispute between the Kelthran Depths and the Outer Rim Consortium. The human matter was concluded. Life in the galaxy would continue with proper order restored. Sarah Chen reached the human embassy within an hour. The building stood in the diplomatic quarter of Axiom Prime, a modest structure compared to the grand architecture of older species embassies. She walked directly to her private office and activated the quantum communication array. The device established an instantaneous connection with Earth's coordination center, bypassing the normal communication delays caused by vast interstellar distances. Ambassador Chen reporting, she said into the encrypted channel. Resolution 7834 has passed. Humanity has been reclassified to observer status. The response came immediately from Director Hassan, his voice steady and unsurprised. Understood. Are you implementing protocol silence? Sarah looked out her window at the gleaming spires of Axiom Prime. The city was beautiful, a testament to thousands of years of careful planning and cooperation among species that valued order above all else. She thought about all the humans who had contributed to this civilization. The engineers who had kept systems running. The doctors who had saved lives. The soldiers who had stood guard. The researchers who had made breakthroughs. All of them dismissed as too chaotic to be trusted with responsibility. Yes, Sarah said quietly. Implement protocol silence immediately. Confirmed. All personnel will receive activation codes within the next standard hour. Good luck, Ambassador. The communication ended. Sarah opened her personal files and began composing her final report as Earth's representative to the Galactic Assembly. Her fingers moved across the holographic keyboard with practiced efficiency. The Assembly has made its decision based on fear of qualities they do not understand, she wrote. They view human adaptability as recklessness. They see our emotional intelligence as primitive instinct. They interpret our willingness to take risks as dangerous unpredictability. After 12 years of service, I can confirm that these species genuinely believe they are making a logical choice to improve galactic stability. She paused, considering her next words carefully. What they fail to recognize is that their stability has been built on a foundation they did not create. For 50 years, humanity has quietly solved problems that these civilized species could not even perceive. We have maintained systems they thought ran automatically. We have prevented threats they never knew existed. We have adapted to situations their rigid thinking could not handle. Sarah finished the report and sealed it for transmission to Earth. Then she activated her personal communicator and sent a single encrypted message to every human in assembly space. The message contained just 2 words, but every human who received it understood exactly what those words meant. Protocol silence. Across the galaxy, humans began to pack. Dr. Michael Zhang stood in his laboratory on Research Station Nevera, staring at the experiment that had consumed 5 years of his life. The quantum resonance chamber hummed with energy, holding a stable wormhole no larger than a grain of sand. His luminary colleagues had said the experiment was impossible, that the energy requirements violated fundamental physics. Michael had proven them wrong by approaching the problem from an angle they had never considered. His communicator chimed softly. 2 words appeared on the screen. Protocol silence. Michael felt no surprise, only a profound sense of inevitability. He had known this day might come. Every human working in assembly space had known. They had prepared for this possibility from the moment they accepted positions among the stars. He began the shutdown sequence for his experiments. Every piece of equipment powered down in carefully orchestrated order. He encrypted his research files with codes that would take other species decades to break, assuming they could break them at all. Then he downloaded his personal data and deleted everything else. His laboratory partner, a luminary named Thistle, arrived as Michael packed his few personal belongings. Dr. Zhang, what are you doing? We have 3 more trials scheduled this week. I'm leaving, Michael said simply, not looking up from his packing. Leaving? But the quantum resonance project is at a critical phase. We need your theoretical models to proceed. Michael handed Thistle a data pad. All my calculations are here. You can continue the work without me. Thistle examined the pad with growing confusion. These equations make no sense. You have variables here that do not exist in standard quantum field theory. How did you derive these formulas? Intuition, Michael replied. He sealed his bag and headed for the door. Intuition? That is not science, Dr. Zhang. You cannot build reproducible experiments on hunches and guesses. Michael paused at the doorway. Then I suppose you'll need to figure out your own approach. Good luck with the research. He walked away, leaving Thistle staring at equations that broke conventional rules yet somehow produced extraordinary results. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On military vessel Determination, Commander Lisa Park transferred all tactical data to her Draxian second officer and quietly departed. On medical station Sanctuary, Dr. Robert Kim finished documenting his treatment protocols and left his alien colleagues to puzzle over procedures that violated medical ethics yet saved lives. On mining outpost Epsilon, engineer David Chen showed his replacement the maintenance schedules he had developed and walked away without explaining how he knew when equipment needed adjustment before sensors detected problems. Human merchants closed their businesses and transferred assets to predetermined accounts. Human explorers uploaded their navigation data and departed without explaining how they had found safe passage through regions that probability calculations declared impossible to traverse. Human teachers said goodbye to alien students and offered no explanations for their sudden departure. The efficiency was remarkable. Every human knew their role. They had practiced this scenario countless times. Protocol silence was not improvisation. It was careful planning executed with precision that would have impressed even the assembly's most logical species. Transport ships arrived at human settlements throughout assembly space. Cargo vessels collected human property and equipment. Military escorts ensured safe passage through potentially hostile regions. The entire operation proceeded with smooth coordination. The alien species watched with growing unease. They had expected emotional chaos. Instead, they witnessed organized withdrawal that resembled a military evacuation. Commander Draxon reviewed reports of the human departure with increasing discomfort. Why are they so calm? We just demoted their entire species. Should they not be protesting? Speaker Velroth had no answer. He had dealt with countless species over his long career. He understood how different civilizations reacted to setbacks and disappointments. Anger, denial, bargaining, depression, acceptance. These were common responses across the galaxy. The humans showed none of these reactions. They simply left. Perhaps they understand that our decision was logical, Velroth suggested, though his voice carried uncertainty. They are accepting the will of the Assembly. But privately, Velroth felt something he had not experienced in decades. Doubt. The human silence felt wrong somehow. It reminded him of how predators behaved in nature documentaries, the quiet stillness before explosive action. Yet humans were not attacking. They were leaving. Why did their departure feel so ominous? By the end of the first month, 70% of humans had departed assembly space. Research stations operated with skeleton crews. Medical facilities scrambled to cover shifts. Manufacturing centers reduced production due to staffing shortages. Minor problems appeared in systems across the galaxy. Assembly administrators filed reports about equipment malfunctions and operational difficulties. The reports were dismissed as temporary adjustment issues. Other species could certainly handle simple tasks that humans had been performing. It was just a matter of adaptation. The last human transport departed assembly space on a Tuesday, by Earth calendar. Its transponder signal faded as the ship entered the dark regions beyond mapped space. For the first time in 50 years, the galaxy contained no human presence in its civilized territories. Speaker Velroth stood in the observation gallery, watching that final ship disappear from sensors. Something felt profoundly wrong, but he could not identify what troubled him. The humans had left peacefully. They had caused no disruptions. They had even transferred their knowledge and work to alien replacements. Why then did Velroth feel like he had just made a catastrophic mistake? The answer to that question would become horrifyingly clear in the months ahead. The price of arrogance. 2 years after Resolution 7834 passed, Speaker Velroth stood in the Central Operations Chamber on Axiom Prime, staring at a wall of red warning indicators that stretched across every display surface. The room that once hummed with efficient coordination now buzzed with barely controlled panic. Dozens of technicians worked frantically at their stations, trying to manage crises that multiplied faster than they could address them. Chief Engineer Corthan approached with another tablet full of bad news. His crystalline structure flickered with stress patterns that Velroth had never seen before in the normally composed species. Speaker, the Outer Rim mining operations are reporting total system failure. That brings our count to 47 collapsed mining facilities in the past 6 months. Velroth took the report with hands that trembled slightly. He had aged a decade in appearance over the past 2 years, his silver skin now dull and lined with fatigue. How is this possible? These facilities operated flawlessly for centuries before human involvement. That's what we thought, Corthan replied, his voice carrying a bitter edge. But when we examined the maintenance logs, we discovered something disturbing. The equipment has been gradually degrading for over 100 years. Human engineers were compensating for the deterioration with constant adjustments that our automated systems never registered as necessary. Velroth scrolled through the technical data, though he barely understood the engineering specifications. The humans left detailed maintenance manuals. Why can't we follow their procedures? Corthan pulled up a human maintenance document on the display. The text read, "Monitor primary resonance field. Adjust dampeners when the harmonic frequency feels wrong. Recalibrate every 48 hours or when the system sounds strained. Feels wrong. Sound strained. Corthan's frustration was evident in his flickering patterns. These are precision instruments worth billions of credits. They don't have feelings or make sounds. Yet somehow, when humans followed these instructions, the equipment ran perfectly. When we follow exact technical specifications, everything breaks down within days. The same pattern was repeating across every sector that had relied on human labor. Mining operations that had produced steady output for generations now struggled to maintain 30% efficiency. The equipment was not old or damaged. It simply stopped working properly without human technicians who could sense problems that instruments could not measure. Commander Draxon entered the operations center with news that made the mining crisis seem manageable by comparison. His massive form moved with unusual urgency. "Speaker Velroth, we have a security emergency. The Syndicate has launched coordinated attacks on 17 trade convoys in the past month. Our interception rate has dropped to 8%. Velroth felt his chest tighten. 8%. Before the humans left, our security forces maintained a 74% interception rate. 74% was the human patrol rate, Draxon corrected grimly. Our standard forces maintained 42%. We thought human patrols were inefficient because they ignored assigned routes. We believed our systematic coverage patterns were superior. What changed? Velroth asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Draxon displayed a tactical map showing Syndicate attack locations over the past 2 years. Red dots marked each successful raid, scattered across trade routes in what appeared to be random distribution. The Syndicate learned our patrol algorithms. They calculated exactly where our ships would be at any given time. They strike in the gaps between our scheduled patrols. We've tried implementing random patrol patterns, but our computer-generated randomness still follows predictable probability distributions. The criminals adapt within weeks. And the human patrols? We reviewed their records, Draxon admitted. Human patrol routes made no mathematical sense. They appeared in locations that probability models rated as low-priority targets. Yet they intercepted raiders at a rate nearly double our best systematic approaches. When we questioned human patrol commanders, they said they followed hunches and gut instincts. We dismissed this as primitive superstition. Now we understand that humans were detecting patterns our logical analysis missed. Chief Scientist Mariah arrived with her own crisis report. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with distress signals that indicated severe anxiety. "Speaker, we need to discuss the research station situation. Scientific productivity has collapsed by 67% since human researchers departed." Velroth wanted to laugh at the absurdity of more bad news, but he had lost his sense of humor months ago. "Explain." Mariah brought up research statistics on the main display. "We believed human research methods were reckless and dangerous." This was correct. Human experiments failed at a rate of 58%, far higher than our standard 11% failure rate. However, we failed to account for the significance of their successes. When human experiments succeeded, they produced breakthrough discoveries that advanced entire fields of study. Our safer, more methodical research produces incremental improvements but no revolutionary advances. "Give me an example," Velroth said. "Dr. Michael Zhang's quantum resonance chamber," Mariah replied. Before he left, he achieved stable microscopic wormhole generation, something our theoretical models said was impossible. We have his equations and his equipment, but we cannot replicate his results. His methodology violates fundamental principles of quantum mechanics, yet it worked. Without understanding his intuitive approach, we cannot advance the research. Velroth remembered Dr. Zhang, a quiet human who had always been polite in assembly meetings. The man had revolutionized faster-than-light communication theory in 5 years, accomplishments that should have taken decades. How many breakthrough discoveries have we lost? In the 2 years since human departure, we have had 0 revolutionary scientific advances, Mariah said quietly. 0. Before humans left, we averaged 17 major breakthroughs per year, and humans were directly responsible for 73% of them. The medical crisis proved even more devastating. Dr. Velthera of the Medical Collective entered the operations center with casualty statistics that made Velrotha's blood run cold. Speaker, patient mortality rates have increased by 31% across all medical facilities. We are losing patients who would have survived under human care. But human medical practices violated safety protocols, Velroth protested weakly. Yes, Dr. Velthera agreed. Human doctors attempted experimental treatments on terminal patients. They tried drug combinations our pharmaceutical databases flagged as dangerous. They performed surgical procedures that contradicted medical doctrine. 62% of these experimental treatments failed. The patients died anyway. But 38% of the time, these impossible treatments saved lives that conventional medicine had written off as hopeless. Velroth felt the weight of those statistics crushing him. How many preventable deaths? In the past 2 years, approximately 47,000 patients across assembly medical facilities died from conditions that human doctors would likely have saved. We cannot know the exact number, but our projections are conservative. The operations center fell silent except for the constant beeping of emergency alerts. Velroth looked around at the species that had voted to remove humanity from full membership. They had believed they were making a logical choice to improve galactic stability. Instead, they had removed the immune system that kept their civilization healthy. The Merchant Consortium representative arrived with economic disaster reports. Trade efficiency had collapsed by 54%. Routes that human pilots had navigated safely through dangerous space were now impassable. Cargo ships took longer, more expensive paths around hazards. Many simply refused to service remote regions, causing supply shortages on frontier worlds. Entire economies were crumbling because human merchants had discovered distribution networks that more logical species never imagined. Then came the news that transformed crisis into catastrophe. Military sensors detected ships emerging from dark space beyond the galactic rim. Energy signatures matched no known species in the assembly database. The vessels numbered 83 and moved in formation patterns that military computers could not interpret. Commander Draxon called an emergency assembly session. The chamber that had once held 53 species now hosted only 37. 16 species had withdrawn their membership in the chaos following human departure, retreating to their home systems with whatever resources they could salvage from the collapsing galactic civilization. We are calling them the Devourers, Draxon announced to the gathered delegates. They are a parasitic species that consumes advanced technology. Their ships are biological mechanical hybrids that adapt to whatever weapons we use against them. They appeared in assembly space 6 weeks ago and have already consumed 17 of our vessels. Velroth watched the battle recordings with growing horror. Assembly forces engaged the Devourers with overwhelming firepower and superior numbers. The outcome should have been decisive victories. Instead, every battle ended in catastrophic defeat. The Devourers' ships moved in patterns that defied tactical prediction. They attacked from unexpected angles, retreated when they should have pressed advantages, sacrificed units to achieve psychological victories rather than strategic objectives. Assembly battle computers calculated optimal defensive formations, and the Devourers simply ignored those calculations. They fought with what appeared to be pure chaos, making decisions that rational analysis declared suicidal yet somehow succeeded. This is impossible, Draxon said, his voice hollow with defeat. They should not be able to defeat us. Our technology is superior. Our numbers are overwhelming. Our tactical computers predict their movements with 97% accuracy. Yet every prediction is wrong. They fight like humans, Velroth finished quietly. The chamber fell silent. The terrible realization settled over every delegate like a suffocating blanket. The Devourers did not fight like humans because they were related to humanity. They fought like humans because chaos was an effective strategy against opponents who relied entirely on logic and predictability. Chief Scientist Mariah made the discovery that shattered what remained of galactic morale. She had been investigating classified records in the Assembly archives, searching for any historical information about the Devourers. What she found was far worse than another unknown enemy. Speaker Velroth, I need to present classified historical files to the full Assembly, Mariah said during an emergency session. Proceed, Velroth replied, though he dreaded what she might reveal. Mariah displayed documents that dated back over 2,000 years. I found records of 7 previous extragalactic incursions. Species similar to the Devourers have attempted to invade Assembly space approximately every 300 years. The pattern is consistent. Parasitic technological predators that fight with chaotic, unpredictable tactics. Why were these invasions not in our historical records? Demanded a delegate from the Etherian collective. Because they were stopped before they became public knowledge, Mariah explained. In each case, human military advisors detected the threat and eliminated it quietly. The incidents were classified to avoid causing panic. The Assembly leadership knew about these invasions but chose not to inform the general population. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs and accusations. Velroth felt his world crumbling. Are you saying humanity has been protecting us from these threats for 2 millennia? No, Mariah corrected. Humans have only been Assembly members for 50 years. But the records show that every previous Devourer incursion was stopped by species that exhibited what we classified as chaos-based thinking. Emotional decision-making, intuitive pattern recognition, willingness to take extreme risks. Every protective species shared these traits. When they disappeared from the galaxy or evolved beyond these characteristics, the next incursion succeeded in causing massive destruction. The pattern repeated 7 times over 2,000 years. Draxon accessed the classified military files and found detailed reports from human officers about suspicious activities in dark space regions. Patrol encounters with unknown vessels that human commanders dealt with quietly. Research into parasitic technological species that human scientists flagged as potential threats. All of it dismissed by Assembly oversight as human paranoia and overreaction. The humans were standing guard, Draxon said with dawning horror. For 50 years, they were protecting us from threats we refused to acknowledge because we could not understand their detection methods. Velroth reviewed report after report. Human patrol ships appearing in empty regions of space for no apparent reason, only to encounter and destroy probe vessels from species that matched Devourer characteristics. Human researchers studying defensive technologies against exotic threat types that Assembly scientists considered theoretical impossibilities. Human intelligence officers investigating rumors and hunches that led to the quiet elimination of infiltration attempts. Every action that the Assembly had criticized as reckless human behavior had been protecting galactic civilization from dangers that logical species could not perceive. The humans had seen the Devourers coming. They had prepared defenses and early warning systems. They had trained for asymmetric warfare against chaotic opponents. Then the Assembly had expelled humanity and dismantled all their protective measures as inefficient and illogical. Now the Devourers arrived unopposed, facing a galaxy that had systematically removed its only effective defense. Assembly forces fought with courage and determination, but courage meant nothing against an enemy that could not be predicted. Determination failed when every tactical doctrine proved useless. The Devourers did not conquer territory. They consumed resources and moved on, leaving devastated systems behind. They attacked targets that made no strategic sense, spreading fear and confusion. They sacrificed ships for psychological victories. Their entire strategy was designed to break the morale of opponents who valued perfect order above all else. Within 8 months, the Devourers had penetrated deep into Assembly space. 12 member species abandoned their home worlds and fled toward the galactic core. 5 species chose extinction rather than face an uncertain future in a chaotic universe. The Perfectionist Collective, unable to cope with the collapse of their ordered civilization, simply powered down their life support systems across their entire population. 3 billion individuals died peacefully rather than live in imperfection. Speaker Velroth called one final Assembly session in the damaged chamber on Axiom Prime. Only 19 species responded to the summons. The others had either fled, died, or retreated into isolation. We have one option remaining, Velroth announced to the shattered gathering. We must contact humanity and request their aid. The suggestion met with bitter laughter from some delegates and horrified silence from others. Commander Draxon shook his head slowly. They will not come. We expelled them. We told them they were too primitive for our perfect civilization. Why would they return to save us? We must try, Velroth insisted. The assembly transmitted distress signals toward human space using every quantum communication method available. The messages were desperate and humble, acknowledging mistakes and begging for assistance. They offered full membership restoration, increased voting rights, unlimited access to assembly resources, anything humanity might demand in exchange for help. The human response arrived 3 weeks later. A single recorded message from Ambassador Sarah Chen, transmitted from somewhere in the dark space beyond the galactic rim. Her image appeared on the display screens, looking older and more tired than Velroth remembered. Speaker Velroth and members of the Galactic Assembly, Sarah began, her voice carrying no anger or satisfaction, only profound sadness. We received your distress call and your offer to restore our membership. The human government has carefully considered your request. Velroth leaned forward, hope flickering despite everything. Perhaps humanity would be merciful. Perhaps they would forgive the Assembly's arrogance and return to help. The answer is no, Sarah continued. Humanity will not be returning to Assembly space. You made your choice 2 years ago when you decided that our emotional thinking and chaotic behavior made us unfit for your perfect civilization. We accepted your decision and departed peacefully. Now you must accept the consequences of that choice. But we were wrong, Velroth whispered to the empty chamber, though Sarah could not hear him. Sarah's image seemed to look directly at him. You were not wrong about humanity's nature. We are emotional. We are unpredictable. We do take risks that logical analysis would prohibit. These traits made us incompatible with your civilization's values. What you fail to understand is that chaos is not a flaw to be eliminated. It is a necessary component of any adaptive system. You created a perfect society that could not adapt to imperfect threats. That is your tragedy, not ours. The recording paused, and Sarah's expression softened slightly. I want you to know that we do not hate you. We understand why you made your decision. You valued order, efficiency, and logical consistency. These are not evil values. They simply proved insufficient for survival in a universe that does not respect order. We hope that some of your species survive and learn from this experience. Perhaps future civilizations will find a better balance between order and chaos. The message ended. No offers of compromise, no negotiations, no hope. Humanity had moved on, leaving the assembly to face the consequences of their choice alone. Velroth stood in the ruins of the assembly chamber 6 months later. The Devourers had reached Axiom Prime the previous week. The beautiful crystal spires lay shattered across plazas where delegates from 53 species once debated galactic policy. The perfect order that the assembly had spent millennia building was gone, consumed by an enemy they could not comprehend. He activated his personal recorder for one final entry. His hands shook with exhaustion and hunger. The automated food systems had failed weeks ago, and he had refused to abandon his post. Final log entry from Speaker Velroth of the Galactic Assembly, he said quietly. I have spent considerable time reflecting on how we arrived at this point. The answer is clear now, though it came far too late to matter. We believed that chaos was the enemy of civilization. We were wrong. Stagnation was our enemy. Rigidity was our enemy. The inability to adapt to unpredictable challenges was our enemy. He looked out through a shattered window at the red sky streaked with the contrails of Devourer ships. Humanity tried to tell us this through their actions, though we did not understand their language. Every time they broke our rules, they were showing us that rules alone cannot protect against threats that refuse to follow rules. Every time they ignored our careful plans, they were demonstrating that adaptation matters more than precision. Every time they risked their lives for strangers, they were teaching us that emotional bonds create strength that logic cannot quantify. Velroth saved the recording and transmitted it toward the dark space where humanity had vanished. He did not know if they would ever receive it or care about his final words. But he needed to say them anyway, needed to acknowledge the truth that the assembly had realized too late. The perfect civilization had died because it removed the one imperfect element that kept it alive. Humanity had been the assembly's immune system, their capacity for adaptation, their defense against chaos. Without that defense, perfection proved to be the most fatal flaw of all. In the distance, Devourer's ships descended toward the assembly chamber, ready to consume the last remnants of a civilization that had valued order over survival. Speaker Velroth stood calmly and waited for the end, finally understanding why the humans had walked away in such perfect silence 2 years earlier. They had known this was coming. They had tried to warn the assembly in every way they could. And when their warnings went unheeded, they departed with dignity rather than forcing help on those who refused to listen. That, Velroth realized in his final moments, was the most human thing of all.